doing this, I there's so many avenues to like go with different episodes and different topics, and I thought one that like came up immediately was talking with Lucy and Leslie, who you probably know now, I guess, as 11th graders, and then Andrea and Paul, and kind of seeing like that, the steps to take, and then just hearing about kind of along that theme, like, kind of your role in helping the guide them through that process. So I just have a list of questions, and what I tell all the guests is anything can be like edited out or fixed or anything like that. So, I
Yeah.
know like Shika was super nervous of like, what if I say the wrong thing, or what if I pause or anything like that? And the good thing is that,
Yeah.
we can cancel it or exit it out if it doesn't go well. But yeah, I'm excited. So, I guess I'll just start with like what got you into education, as a whole, and then what specifically got you into your current role.
So into education specifically, I mean, in high school, I had a high school gymnastics coach. I just thought had like a really cool job. He was really nice. He had a family. He, got up early with us, and it just seemed like a really cool job. Um, and he actually didn't have a college degree, so he didn't get to teach. But I saw, so through that, I guess I just saw like kind of teaching, coaching. I thought about maybe coaching gymnastics and teaching, but I didn't really know what I wanted to teach. And then in college, I majored in exercise sports science, kind of thinking again about coaching, but also maybe like athletic training, or something like that. I wasn't too sure. But after college, I dabbled in some things, and then I wound up getting involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters. And through my little sister, I was like, yeah, this is for sure what I want to do. And I was also dating Terry, and then two of my roommates at the time were actually working at Yes. Um, and so yeah,
And then
and
did you teach before becoming a college counselor?
I did. So I taught, so my first year was kind of a wash because I was like a mid-year hire. So I was just like all over the place. I was basically like a permanent sub. Before we had subs, we like would have to find each other coverage. So if you were like leaving, you had to like ask a friend, like, hey, can you cover for me?
Wow.
Because we didn't have substitutes. So then I came in, and then I was like kind of like the permanent sub, and so I would like take over coverage when I could. And then I taught freshman seminar, which is a college initiatives class. It's so on like the freshman level, it's really kind of starting to prepare like study skills, and things to kind of focus on in high school, or like pre-resume building. And then I taught that for 2 years, and then I taught junior seminar for a year, and then officially, once we got like the senior class, because that was before we had a senior class, then we could hire a college counselor. And so then I got into college counseling, and now I'm in college counseling and teaching.
And is this your just right role? Do you as far as like ninth grade seminar versus a college counselor?
Um, I think so. Yeah, I don't think that like I love college counseling. Like I love the balance of really getting to know kids, and like being able to help them make decisions, or see them procrastinate on making decisions. Um, so you get to know the kids, and you don't have to teach like all the time. So it's a good balance. So I like highly recommend it to anyone who's like
Yeah, and
especially burnt out on teaching. Like you
mhm.
should college counsel.
I know, my goodness.
Yeah.
So how much do you, I guess you have your Pauls and your Andreas who naturally you keep up with more, but is there like as part of your job description, is it through college as far as like keeping tabs on, if students are dropping out or they're wanting to transfer schools or anything like that?
Yeah, so we still keep up with them, and it's a part of like Miss Thompson and I, we meet and we review like our alumni data, and we reach out to certain groups. And so they're in certain tiers, and, we check in on certain ideas and, how are you doing? Or have you enrolled? Or do you need help with financial aid? And so we do that through their freshman year. And then post that is just, and that's not like, it's maybe every other month or every 2 or 3 months, something like that. Maybe it's once a semester, depending on the student.
And what's like, I guess a pretty common thing that you have to work with students through college? Maybe things that they're like, like, oh, I need help with this because I have no idea what to do. Is it
FAFSA,
like, oh, what is it?
FAFSA,
Oh, okay.
financial aid. Yeah, just financial aid in general. I'd say like once it comes October, which is when we file for financial aid, um, I start to hear, from the woodworks, kids like, hey, miss, hey, miss, hey, miss, from emails to text messages to, kids who, yeah, just like have a quick question, like, and it's a lot of just screenshot. What is this? I don't know what that is. And so,
Yeah, I feel like your role is like it's so much off the books.
yeah,
Like
for sure.
here, it's like you're 9 to 5 or 9 to 4, or 8 to 4, and then you lesson plan, and then boom, you're done. Whereas yours, you could be getting texts from students across all grade levels in college about random questions. And then
Yeah.
you're basically, it seems like their parent or like their resource guide advisor, who they feel comfortable with to like go to you. So, I feel like your hours are like on a whole different. I know Terry talked about how you were like students were reaching out to you over the break and over the summer and always. So it seems like it's 24/7 for the students like needing your help for sure. Are there I know, I guess Fifth Ward hasn't gotten to the any students who have graduated college, right?
We're
So
getting there.
we're
Andrea
getting,
Johnson.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's
I
true.
think
And then she's going to be a teacher.
yeah, well, and she held off. She held off a year. She could have graduated this year, and so she'll stay put.
Man.
We're getting there.
So what has been like, I guess when you look back on it, as far as like your impact, even as just a teacher or even as a college counselor, like a story or like a memory that you remember that sticks with you, as far as watching a kid grow, or a story they've told you that happened in college that made you smile.
I mean, I think of a lot, like I get to work with like really exciting moments in kids' lives. I think of I have a video of when Andrea, and Kayla Ramirez were sent their first application. It was like when they hit enter, and I was like, oh my God, it was, their first college application. And I think of like those moments. Think of another student in the class of 2020 when he was accepted to college. And looking back at the memories, like from something that they had written in senior year, and it was like, "What's your favorite memory?" And it was like when LaRotta told me that I was accepted to college because I didn't think it would happen. Um, and so like, it's like a little moment, like, yeah, they got into this college that maybe is very like common for other students, or it's when they get accepted to like HCC and Sanjac, what it's like really like everyone gets accepted to. But like, I mean, when they get
Yeah.
that, they're like, miss, I got accepted to HCC. I'm like, that's awesome. um so I have a lot of those like really favorite memories. I think of kids applying to college and getting accepted to college. I also think of like this class in 2021, Rivaldo getting, he applied early decision to George Washington University, which is like, if you have gotten to know Rivaldo over the past 2 years, it's
Hmm.
like his number one school. And getting that text message and those, calls and videos of him getting in, like that'll be something that will stick with me forever.
That's awesome. I know Paul talked about how he was like, advice for high school students at Fifth Ward is like, use the resources that the college counselors give you, like study SAT,
Oh,
study.
I
And
loved hearing that from him.
yeah, and he's like, I could have definitely I mean, I got into Emory, but like I definitely could have, studied a little bit harder. So I guess on the flip side, have there been like, I guess with being working at in a small kind of community, have there been frustrations as far as like the resources that you have, or um, anything that you, I guess, would be like an area of growth where you could say, hey, this is an area where, like, as a counseling team, we could better support kids in their preparation for the later years of high school and then, of course, college?
It's such like a hard, it's such a hard
Yeah.
question because I think the hardest thing is that we just have kids on such different sides of the spectrum. We have the kids who are getting accepted to George Washington University. We have kids who are at Emory, like, um, and then we have kids who don't want that and who don't want to go to college. We have kids who want to enroll in the military. I have, a kid in South Korea right now who, if you would have known him in high school, um, I have some of my favorite memories with him of being just a mess. And now he is responsible and he, pays his bills and he is a married man and fighting, and protecting and doing all of these amazing things in South Korea. So I just think of, I guess maybe like, I don't want to say the lack of resources, but I think the time. I wish as a college counselor, really, I just had more time to do all of the things to support the kids on all of that, on every facet, on every choice that they want to make. And sometimes I feel like I just don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, I guess they always talk about like differentiation for teachers and stuff, but
Yeah.
what kind of's forgotten is that um, every kid is different, especially when it comes to like their college choices. And I know Andrea mentioned like how she wanted to go up to the Northeast, and then she had conversations with you guys as far as like, is that the best fit for her? Which is
Mhm.
not something that a by the book college counselor would even have. It spoke to the relationship she had with you. Um, so what do you, because I know that, a lot of districts, especially our district, it's to college, that's like the thing. So
Right.
what do you tell a student who says, Miss Lorata, I don't want to go to college. Um, so like, how do you best support them while still kind of keeping in, graduation rates and, college matriculation and all that stuff?
Yeah, and that's our like that's like a big goal of ours. That's something that we look at, in every one of our meetings is our matriculation rate. And so it's really important that, we're getting these kids to and through college. But when I think of, kids, and really when I have a lot of kids who, in the class of 2021, seniors right now, there's miss, I don't want to go to college. But really we're a college preparatory one. You have to be accepted to college. And so if you want to graduate, you got to be accepted. So we're going to have to get accepted. And then once you can focus on that, and that's what I like promise a kid is if you can get yourself into college, I promise you we will have every single conversation about what you want to do. You want to get into welding, you want to go into the military, you want to work in HVAC, like whatever it is, we'll have all of those conversations. But you gotta get accepted to college. And then it's really, I think, having the second conversation of of like it is possible, and I want you to be accepted to college because I want you to make the choice of, hey, I was accepted to college and I decided not to go. Um, Instead of, someone making that decision for you or you making that decision for yourself and not even applying.
Yeah, I guess you kind of, there's an element of like, where you give them all the choices and set them up, and then at the end of the day, they make the decision and live with, either the consequences or, the benefits that come with that.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, maybe a student who got accepted and then said, it's not right for me.
Right.
um yeah. So I kind of wanted to shift gears. This actually came up with a previous guest that I just recorded with, but it was talking about, and this is not related to college counseling, it's talking about having a partner in education as well. So as of this moment, you have a partner who I also know who is in education.
Mhm.
So what is it like having a spouse in education in the same profession and for a time at the same school as you? What are the positives? Although I think that's a little bit more obvious versus, the negatives that people may be like, what? That'd be awesome to work with your spouse.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so, I mean, yeah, you're right. There's so many positives. It's just really nice to, because we didn't always work in the same field, like even when he got into education, which he did short right after college. And it took me 4 or 5 years to get into it. So I think just having this, being able to balance our conversations, and like be able to talk about the same things and the same kids, because it's like, as a teacher, you're always talking about your kids. Like, you're always like, there's just so many funny things that kids say and kids do, and or remarkable things, and it's just like, so I think being able to have a partner that I can have those conversations with and not be like, oh, just talking about work again, which I know I like can definitely talk about work too much more, a lot more than he can, and talk about kids a lot more than he can. But I mean, I would say that that's for sure my favorite. Um, but on the contrary, the negative is just, it's a lot, and um, I feel like, especially maybe for two people who do build strong relationships, and we try to maybe like do a lot for kids, like you want to do these bid trips and you want to do these spring trips, and um, you want to, that some of those kids don't have shoes for the upcoming basketball season. So you take them to academy on a Wednesday night with your kid in the back. Um, so that they have shoes for that, or just like all of that, so it gets to be all encompassing a lot of the times with two educators, I think.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that too.
yeah, well, I think it's so difficult to like, it requires so much communication because you have to like compartmentalize all the craziness and, thousands of different things that you want to share. But then you're like, we've been talking about this every day for the past,
Hmm.
2 months for 3 hours every
All the
night. Like,
time. Yeah.
and you're so, you said like all encompassing. And then I think on the flip side, it's like consuming sometimes when you
Yeah.
just want to hear about something else. Um, but I definitely agree with you on the positives as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I
And
guess we'll,
communication too.
mhm.
Like, especially, I think working at Yes, but a lot of the communication, the PD that we go through to talk, like on how to talk to students, it's really just like how to communicate. It's like how to communicate with your coworkers and whatnot. But like we take that and I feel like our communication is so on point, because we know how to call each other out. We know, like, that's an empathy blocker. Like, we
Yeah.
so I'd say that's also a big positive.
Yeah, I heard this like Teach for America couple who would give each other glows and grows at the end of each week, which is the most teacher thing I've ever heard
That's
of.
so funny.
But then it's like that could also be effective. I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember practicing like a mirroring experiment or
Mhm.
activity, where it was practicing like listening, and not to respond and all that stuff. And I was just thinking,
Right.
oh well, I'm going to apply this to my own relationship,
Yeah,
more than anything. So
absolutely.
my I guess something that I am just personally curious about, is when we got a dog and when we got a second dog,
Mhm.
always through my mind, I was just the type of person where it was like the bell rings, no more coaching soccer, no more staying after school to tutor. It's like I need to get home because my dog is in the crate whining and, all that stuff. And that was just my mindset. And I had found it tough to be like, hey, these days I'm gonna stay, these days I'm gonna, so I can still like impact more kids and develop those relationships that a lot of times, are after school hours.
Yeah.
And that's with dogs, so like with you guys having young kids, pretty recently, how have you been able to balance being an educator, caring for so many kids that you treat like your own, with your also your own young kids, and all the things that they need, being picked up, lunch being packed, and all that stuff. How have you been able to like balance, while still giving your 110%? and staying late and, going to academy and all those things that you said?
I mean, I just to be honest, I don't give 110%, like I try, but like my work, I think like just like my work output is not what it used to be prior to being a mom. And it's hard sometimes. And by sometimes I mean like a lot of the times, because I'm not giving 110% at my job, and I'm not giving 110% as being a mom, and being a wife, and being just me. So I think it's just a matter of being okay with it. I think a big thing for me, and this doesn't work, I would say for everyone for sure, but I I mean, my kids were always, especially, I think that's been so hard prior to COVID, because prior to COVID, my kids were always at the school. Like the kids know, like all the students know our kids' names. Like, we'd go to basketball games, we'd stay after school for a club or for a show. And, like the kids were like the students are holding our kids, and it like we were just always there. And lucky for us, we were both at the same campus and whatnot. But I'd say even pre and post, I think it would be the same. It's just different now because it's COVID. But I think just I just like bring my kids, like if I have to work late and it's like application cram jam, like it's like we have this night that we host before like big application deadlines, and we used to order pizza, and we did it virtually this year, but and we're there till 8 or 9 p.m. We order pizzas, and all the kids are just staying there applying to colleges, and my kids are there, and they're being pushed around in a stroller, and I can't like kill myself over not meeting every single deadline. As much as I want to, and I'll try, and if I don't, I mean, that's okay. It's as long as I can get that application in, and I think that's what sometimes kills me, because then I'm like working late because I'm like, if I don't get this application and if I don't finish this letter of recommendation, if I don't finish X, Y, and Z, then this kid's application is going to be affected. So I'll do a lot of late nights in doing that. But that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that you spoke up in as far as coming into work late, for example, to like give yourself the time to spend with getting your kids ready to for school and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Would you? This is a question that I've thought of. Would you ever teach at the school that your kid went to,
Um, I mean,
or
I
would you
guess
subject that to that trauma?
I don't know. Well, and I've been asked, a lot of the students ask, are your kids going to go to Yes Prep? And I would say no. I always say no. Just because I don't think our kids, I don't want to take that spot from someone else, who doesn't have two college educated, people that are going to set our students out on that pathway. Like, I feel like, anyway. So I don't know, like at Yes Prep, probably not, because I don't see our kids at a Yes Prep school. Like they'll just go to our neighboring schools, but and I can't really see myself like at a public school. I mean, I guess I could actually. Like I could. So yes, I think it would
Uh-oh.
be, and I think that the benefit for our kids is that we wouldn't have the same last name. Since I didn't change my last name, maybe like a lot of kids wouldn't realize, like, is that your mom? You know?
Yeah. From my perspective, I was like, oh, of course I would want to teach, because then everything seems so much easier. But then
Yeah.
Allie was like, no way I'd subject my kids to that. Cause she had, I think her mom and her aunt, because they have a line of educators went, and
Yeah.
it was their nightmare.
Yeah.
So she's like, I would never do that to my kids because they would
Oh,
hate
I
me
can't.
forever.
I can't imagine my like, expect my mom, like, like my. working or going to the same school, I remember seeing her in the hallway and be like, "Oh my God, my mom's here." I was like so scared
Yeah.
that she was gonna yell at me or, tell me to,
Yeah,
do something.
yeah, I remember my first year teaching. We were at the food bank, and my mom was like helping to volunteer, because she was really involved, and
Yeah.
she saw Kafriana, like kind of loitering, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, because she wasn't interested in sorting the boxes or whatever. And I just saw my mom like beeline towards the like bathroom loitering area, and so as soon as she goes, I'm like, I know what's going through her head, like all kids need to be working, like we're here to volunteer and all that stuff. So then she's sprinting across, and I'm sprinting to like intercept her of like,
Right.
well, I don't know how much exposure, first of all, some students have, especially towards like a Korean woman, who
Yeah.
they have not seen before. So then I kind of go to intercept, and I'm like, hey, I got this. Like, I'll talk to her. There's no need. But I was
Yeah.
thinking, man, and I'm the teacher. So if I were
Right.
a classmate, for example, and my mom was coming in to do that, I would be like, oh my gosh,
Oh
this is
man.
so embarrassing. But that's really helpful advice, because I see you guys as like down the line, like I guess experiences that you go through or advice that you guys have, definitely to take even for myself, as far as, one, what's it like to have a spouse who's also in the same profession? And then two, what is it like to like give yourself as much as possible while still reserving, you know, the most you can give to, of course, your own kids? Because I think that like guilt, you always think about, like you said, the college application of getting that kid to college versus, you know, like being there when your kid gets home to help them with their homework or something like that. That
Yeah.
like balance, I think, is so hard for teachers, I think,
Yeah.
especially teachers with kids.
Absolutely.
So my last question is just to round it out. Um, I try to think of something unique to a college counselor. So I said advice that you have towards, and we could take it separate ways. I was going to say advice to a new teacher, but I also think that's kind of lame for a college counselor, because you get to work with way different groups. So I'd say advice to a high school student starting the application process, and then maybe advice to someone who's in college who is just, struggling through their identity in college. So I guess the first one would probably be.
Um, I mean, I don't know if it would be the same for both, is just asking for help. I think for my seniors, um, a lot of I feel the confusion or the delay is just the the lack of clarity, or just maybe I don't think I can do this, or I don't know what this is. So I realize that when I jump on my one-on-one, advising meetings with kids, and we can join on a Teams call, and okay, pull this up and we can share a screen, and I'm like, okay, this is what you click, the here, this is what I'm talking about, and you put this information in this box, and it's like, oh. And then, as I think, maybe that trust, or just the scariness of having to ask for help. I see that in a lot of kids, from high school to college, and I'm happy that a part of my job is that I have to check in with kids, and even after high school, and it's like, hey, how are you? Were you able to register? And it's like, oh no, man, and it's the same thing. I'm doing that with my freshmen in college, my sophomores in college, and it's like, all right, we join a FaceTime call, send me screenshots, like, and so I think just asking for help, like, don't be afraid to find someone that you can, trust, and ask, I don't know how to do this. Like, can you help me? Um, yeah. And I think I would say the same thing for my college students, my alum. I'm like, why didn't you ask me sooner? They're like, I don't know, Miz. I just like didn't want to bother you.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of goes into what Andrea and Paul talked about, and I think a lot of our students go through, is just the idea that they don't belong, or they don't want to ask for help because, that shows that they shouldn't belong there, or whatever.
Yeah.
So kind of that imposter syndrome. What has been your experience with, your kids who are now in college, or even just in your own experience, as ways to like continue to empower those kids to say, hey, you're at a top tier university, but like you do belong.
Mhm. Um, I mean, I think there's only so many words that I can really give a kid. And while really just supporting them through it, I think it's really just like actions, having them go through that college experience. Like when we have like alumni panels, it's really difficult because our alumni will come and they'll talk about it, but the seniors don't always want to hear it, like they're going through it. And so I think a lot of what I've learned of what to say to a student is really just of being supportive, and just like being that listening ear. And they're gonna make mistakes, and you're gonna fall, and it's gonna fall harder. And then as long as you can try and pick yourself back up. Um, so I don't really know how to answer that because I'm thinking of what to say. But just having someone like that strong support system, really. And that's really what I try and build with every kid is just like is having that person to be able to lean back on and ask questions, or, hey miss, I messed up my credit. Like I took out a big loan out, and I don't know what to do now. And, how am I going to buy a car, and how do I do this, and how do I do that? And um, and I think it just goes back to being able to ask for help, and knowing that there are people that believe in you, that know that you can do this, that you can graduate from college, that you can, go to a top master's program, that you can go to a top law school, you can go and kill it in the military, you can go to a trade school. I have, kids who are want to be, again, like welders who will come out making more money than, probably a first year teacher. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so
that's
excited
what it is.
for the kids that, you started with to graduate college and to see, all the careers that they go through or they go to. And then I think it'll be awesome for you to be able to kind of look back and know that those little texts or the help with loans or those FAFSA applications or whatever was all worth it. I
Yeah.
am so confident in Eli and Vivi's college college prospects based on the 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 resource that they're living with.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome.
but that's all I had. I do appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I think that your perspective kind of tying into what Leslie, Lucy, and Paul and Andrea talked about will be super helpful for people to hear from.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's been really fun to be able to have, I think, just an outlet of, I find myself hearing your podcast and snapping and, and thinking of just that, like that supportive, listening part of knowing that teaching is really hard. And it's really difficult, especially this past year. Like, it's been really difficult. So, but it's so worth it. And these kids are making amazing decisions and life choices, um and bettering the world. And that's really just our future. And I think of just how awesome it is that we all can be there, and have like these funny moments. And I don't know. I just like appreciate the podcast and having me on and all of that.